Such a apropos song, yes, for our community. That space, that place where we're saying, yes, I see your true colors. I see who you truly are. Even if you may not show up as your best, shiniest self all the time, I'm still going to see your true colors. So last week I was sharing about this idea of counting the Omer and this really beautiful Kabbalistic tradition that happens right about now. And as I was telling people after service, that 49 days doesn't have to just happen now. You get to step into that place whenever you want to, right? Whenever you would like to. And the central question that I was asking last week was, how do we stay centered in our spiritual growth? How do we anchor ourselves in this place, in this space, where we truly can show up and see the truth of who people are? Because sometimes it's hard to see the truth of someone when our own stuff is getting triggered. Am I alone in that? I hope not, all right? So I shared with you this idea of the tree of life. And, there's lots of different systems that people have that we have to access to be able to support us in understanding how we can access something within ourselves. And so in the Kabbalistic tradition, these are 10 divine aspects which allow the infinite to manifest as us. Sounds a lot like our 12 powers, yes? And so it's through the interaction of all 10 of the Serifot that we actually can reveal the truth of who we are, which sounds a lot like our 12 powers. And so during these 7 weeks, between when the Israelites were freed from Egypt and when they actually received the Torah at Mount Sinai, each week has a focus. And so for week 1, which was last week, it was chesed. Everybody say that? Which is loving kindness. And then this week, it is gevura. Everybody say that. Gevura. Which is restraint and strength. Can you feel some of the tension in that already? Between loving kindness and strength? So that's what I wanted to take a look at today, right? Because one of the pieces that we talked about last week was this idea that as we're on our journey of spiritual evolution and growth, that there are these tension points. It's like we expand into something that feels so free and so amazing, like the Israelites freed from Egypt. And then there's this like, uh-oh, am I really that big? Uh-oh, can I really do this? Uh-oh. And there's this contraction that can happen. And that's a normal part of our growth, right? We expand, we contract a little bit, we expand, we contract a little. The idea is that it's always on this upward momentum. But what can get in the way in those moments of contraction is what scripturally they called the murmuring. And the murmuring, how Unity would understand that, is the voices we hear in our own head. How many people have those voices? Are you good enough for this? Can you actually do that? I'm not so sure. Is this the right direction? What if I'm making a mistake? And as well as just the habits that we have, the patterns and the dynamics that have been sort of worn a groove in us and even in our relationships. Right? Our relationships have grooves to them. So I wanted to read this because I love this. This is by an unknown author. Chapter 1, I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault, but it takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. It isn't my fault, but it still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I fall in. It's a habit, but now my eyes are open. I know where I am. It's my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5, I walk down a different street. Does that feel familiar to any of us? And that is our growth, right? That's how it happens. So we can get caught in any number of those chapters, right? We can be sort of pulled back. And the things that I find that I struggle with are maybe old resentments. We talked about how Pharaoh in the story of Exodus continually hardens his heart. He has these moments of, insight, wisdom, and then the habit kicks in and he hardens his heart again. Maybe we have old wounds that are in need of healing. The chapter that says, I pretend I don't see it, right? I pretend I'm not seeing that open wound in my heart, and I'm just pretending it's not actually there. There's always the familial and systemic patterns. How many people have been blithely walking down a different street, and your entire family or your entire workplace is over on that other street screaming at you to come over here, right? So the systems can also pull us off of our center. There's groupthink, which is also part of this. This is where we get so emotionally invested in each other that other people's perspectives, other people's values have influence over us. They take precedent over our own understanding of our values, of what's important to us. And then, of course, there's just the lack of belief in our own values. Right? A lack of belief in our own personal worth. Who am I? I mean, I don't know about you. I ask myself that question. Who am I to fill in the blank? Moses does this, remember? I mean, the story is so helpful. But Moses is at the burning bush, and he's like, I have a lisp. You really want me to be the one to go talk to Pharaoh in your name? Me? Who am I to do this? And the reply that he gets is, I am with you. I am with you. When we open to the truth of who we are, we're never alone in that experience. It's never just the little Deanne that is trying to do X, Y, or Z. There's so much more that is available to me. So what we're being invited to do is to stand in our own center and in our own authentic voice and in our values. And we have to hold steady. This is the tricky part. We have to hold steady even when other people want us to reorient ourselves back to them. Anybody in here ever experienced that? Or you can feel somebody being like, no, we used to have this dynamic. Come on back to that place with me. So how do we do this? And, we're very practical here in Unity. And so I come back to our core values, right? I mean, they really feel like everything we're talking about is in these core values. This idea of living in awareness of unity with all, right? Not just some, not just the people who I get along with and who are easy, but connectivity with all. And that we're cultivating a space for everyone to show up in their uniqueness, in their personal expression of the divine. And, so all of these are ands. We are being invited to be true to our values, to be true to our authenticity, to be true to what it is that we know. And so strength and loving kindness, can you feel how helpful the two of these things together can be in terms of staying centered in who we actually are? So loving kindness, the definition that I'm going to invite us to work with, is that authentic connection that is anchored in everyone's wholeness. And this is unique to Unity, or all mystical traditions have this understanding of wholeness. And from that space, we can be compassionate, we can be spacious, we can be open. But we all know that feeling of maybe feeling too open, maybe feeling too out there. And this is where strength is helpful. Because strength is about setting boundaries with, these two go together, right? We want to weave them together. So it's boundaries that are loving kindness. It is making difficult decisions, like I'm not going to go join you in that hole, as enticing as you make it sound. I am not going down that hole with you. And that can be a difficult decision because the person in the hole is looking at you going, you don't love me. You don't care about me. Well, if you loved me, you would be in the hole with me. And then this piece I think is very important, the practicing accountability to ourselves and to our community. And this doesn't mean you get to be a jerk. I want to be really clear, right? There's a whole sort of movement out there where my authentic feelings are something you have to take care of for me. So I'm going to tell you what you need to do to make it okay for me. And that's not what I'm speaking to here. Can everybody hear that? I'm talking about lovingly holding ourselves and each other accountable for, are we actually living into our values together? Are we really doing that? So when we have resentments and a hardened heart, can you feel how loving kindness to ourselves is so important? Can we become spacious and open with ourselves? Can we actually be more spacious and open with whatever it is that we think that person did to us or didn't do to us? Can we truly make a space for that not to be the story that we are carrying with us continually? Can you feel how we are the ones that are being impacted by the resentments that we carry? The person in your 20s who who ghosted you, they are not thinking about you in their 40s. But you're still thinking about them. So can we just soften our hearts and let that go? Those wounds, right? And can we be gentle with ourselves about the fact that we have wounds? Anybody in here have a wound? I'm going to raise both my hands. And then those familiar and systemic patterns can sometimes be the hardest because, like I said, the people who were pivoting with can feel abandoned, they can feel betrayed, they can feel unloved, they can feel uncared for, because you're breaking the pattern where you're not sitting in the hole with them, right? Now, I'm not talking about not being empathetic to what that person is experiencing. I had an Alexander teacher say to me once, don't go in the hole with them, throw the rope. Throw the rope. And then they get to decide whether or not they want to climb out. That's not our decision to make. We offer the rope, and we're an anchor for them. So if they want to climb out of that hole, that is available to them. But sometimes, anybody in here just have to sit in the hole sometimes? I have to sit in the hole sometimes. The emotional enmeshment, can you feel how that's also part of the emotional enmeshment? You don't love me. If you loved me, you would fix it for me. If you loved me, you would rescue me from this situation. So oftentimes when we talk about loving kindness, people are thinking about being nice. And being nice is not loving kindness. I was doing my deep dive like I do, and the definition of nice is self-oriented actions that are about proving to the world how pleasant and agreeable you are. And I was like, whoa, right? It's not about the truth of who you are. It's not authentic. People say to kids all the time, don't hit her, be nice. Even though you want to hit her, don't be pleasant, be agreeable, right? And I'm not talking about just kindness. Kindness is wonderful. Kindness is about being aware, but you know what the definition of kindness is? That your orientation is all about the other people's concerns and issues. So can you feel how those are not balanced? And we sort of flip between nice and kind and nice and kind. Loving kindness is inviting us into a place where we are seeing and knowing the wholeness that that person actually is. That kindness can often translate into being a rescuer. Can I get an amen on this? Right? And that, as human as it is, so we get to hold that with compassion, is not what we're inviting ourselves to be as a spiritual community. We want to anchor loving kindness. And in order to be that place of loving kindness, it requires that we have our own center. We have to anchor ourselves first. It's kind of like the airplane. Put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on the child. We have to center ourselves in our understanding of our wholeness, and that will then enable us to see that wholeness in someone else. Because the truth is, we all belong innately. We all belong. And we are all healing. And we are all welcomed in our wholeness. So we can be present with people where they are and stay centered in our own growth and our own understanding, which means that we cannot fix things for people. Take a deep breath with me. We can't fix things for people. They're going to have the experience they're having, and we need to respect that. We need to honor that the same way we want them to honor the journey that we're on, the choices that we're making. So I want to share just a brief story of how I actually lived this in spiritual community. So at Unity of Berkeley, we made the decision as a community. There was about 40 people who were active in the community when I was serving there. And when I was hired, it was done with the awareness that we were either going to hospice the community or we were going to midwife it into a new renewal. And it became clear by the end of that first year that it was hospice, right? That we were going to close Unity of Berkeley. And I have to say that that community, it was incredible. We had 40 people. Decision was made by the whole community together. And the decision was made. We knew exactly how much money we needed and how long we could afford to stay open and what we could do to be able to finish off paying off some of the debts from the past. And not a single person left that community until our very last service. Everybody stayed in it right to the end. And we called that practice ending well. We were all going to learn how to end well. And it was about 4 months, and I gotta tell you, it wasn't easy, but there was so much love and so much work and so much healing that happened during that time. And we had one of our final services was this beautiful ritual of farewell and letting go. And there's my community sitting there. And all of a sudden, the doors start to open, and people who hadn't been at Unity of Berkeley in years were showing up because it was the last service, right? Which was beautiful that they were showing up. And they were bringing a very different energy into the room because they hadn't been moving together for those 4 months. And they were bringing themselves in their beauty and their magnificence into the space. And it was interesting how apparent it was, because as they started to come in, the community that had been there just started looking at each other, like, what's happening? What's going on? And we all just looked at each other, and it was like this silent agreement, and we all just stayed centered in what we had been doing for 4 months. We didn't contract. We didn't fall back into a more familiar pattern. We stayed centered in what we knew was possible for us. And what was so amazing is that by the end of that service, healing was happening everywhere, right? Healing was happening everywhere. It was such a powerful lesson in what is possible when we actually stand in loving kindness. Because if the community had been nice, we might have gone to meet them, right? To make it agreeable for them, to make it feel more comfortable for them. But the community stood in loving kindness. Come as you are. We're all healing. We all are in need of wholeness. We are holding our center. And it was one of the most incredible rituals ever. And I don't know the journey of what those people were on. I mean, I had never met most of them, right? But you could feel the healing in the room. Something else became possible because a group of 40 were holding center. So it can feel like we're alone sometimes. It can feel like as we're holding our center that we are just adrift. But it's not true. Because who am I that should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? I will be with you. The I am that you are is with you. Look around at each other. We are here with you. None of us is actually alone. So who am I? I am. That's the who that I am, right? I am I am the one to do this work that I am doing. It's not mine to do your work, sorry. I got enough on my own plate. Thank you very much. But I am the one to do the work that is mine to do. So let's take this into our time of meditation. Just breathing into that space, that part of us maybe that wants to go into the hole, the part of us that wants to save people from going into the hole, the part of us that wants to just avoid the hole altogether. Because we carry all of that within us. And in different parts of our relationships in our world, we may be at different places in those 5 chapters that I read. So the invitation right now is to bring loving kindness to ourselves. If you want to place your hand on your heart or just breathing into the sore places or the questioning places or the unsure places. Just letting yourself know that it's okay. Letting yourself know that right where you are is perfect. That you actually have everything you need and more. Everything you need and more to navigate whatever is arising. And as we allow that gentleness to be present, I want you to also feel the rootedness. Feel the steadfastness. Feel the strength that is you. The strength that allows you to be soft. The strength that allows you to be open. The boundaries that allow you to be free. And let's just rest here for a few minutes in the silence as we experience that sacred and holy, paradoxical space where strength and boundaries and loving kindness actually are fully integrated together as each of us. How good it is to be this space, this place of compassion and strength, of love and groundedness, of boundaries and freedom. How good it is to know that whatever is alive in our world, be it family dynamics or work dynamics or our own inner dynamics of doubts and a desire to just fall back onto old patterns, that we have the capacity to be centered in the truth of who we are, and that we get to be that space with love, with joy. Everyone here, everyone on their way, we all belong. We are all healing. And we can hold that space with love and compassion. And so it is. Amen. Ashe.